What is our aim? What is our fixation? First, we've got to realize what it is that we love more than God. What is the thing we're chasing? But our spirals don't have to keep spiraling down. We can actually flip them around and they can start to go upward. I was curious when I started this study about science and the Bible and how these two things came together. And I started reading a lot about the brain and how it works right alongside the scriptures. And what I read was fascinating. One of the doctors that I read was named Dan Siegel, and he was a professor of psychiatry. And he wrote something that surprised me, but it is so hopeful. He said this: where attention goes, neural firing flows and neural connection grows. And patterns that you thought were fixed actually are things that with mental effort can be changed. This is so hopeful. And it's what the Bible teaches us too. In other words, we can change our brains. And what we think about, it's probably what we're becoming. What we fixate on is going to turn into who we are and who we become. So I have to ask, what is it that you fixate on? You probably know your fixation. It's something that you constantly think about. I usually know mine because they start coming out everywhere. You talk about them, you think about them, you talk about it with your friends, you read books about it, podcasts, you join groups that care about that thing. And some people call them our obsessions. And maybe yours, deep down, is comfort or control or health or fear of failure or multi-level marketing. But there's probably something that you tend to fixate on. And the problem with this is that anything we fixate on this earth, it can be taken from us. But if you think about your spirals, most of them aren't freewheeling, chaotic thoughts. They usually have a focal point. And probably that thing that you're fixating on is also the thing you worship. It's the thing you love. It's the thing you want most. It's the thing you chase. I've spoken before that I had an eating disorder in my 20s, and it started when I was in college, and I was a cheerleader, and every week they would weigh us in, and if we gained more than a couple pounds, we would get benched for that game that week. And after a little while, that starts to really mess with your mind. And so I found myself obsessing over meals and working out and what to eat and what to not eat, and my fixation became a place that I felt completely stuck in. It was the focus of every spiral in my day, every spiral in my head. And I remember in that season reading Paul's words, I could take my thoughts captive to the obedience of Christ. I remember highlighting it and underlining it and memorizing it because it had never occurred to me that I was not subject to this struggle. And my spiral was interrupted. And I all of a sudden realized I had power over my mind and my life again. God has given you the power to interrupt whatever your fixation is. And that's what this verse from Paul said to me, and it reminded me of. It was news that I was so happy to hear. And the question that remained then, after understanding I had the power to change it, was then how do I change it? How can I interrupt this spiral? And for you, the answer, at least in part, might be something big. Because some spirals are not interrupted easily. It might be counseling. It might be a season of investing in healing. And it will require community and people in your life, people to hold you accountable. Prayer and fasting, it's going to include that. And for you and me both, a presence with God, a time with God, focused on his power, focused on his grace, it's going to require that. But our spirals don't have to keep spiraling down. We can actually flip them around and they can start to go upward. And Paul knows this. And so Paul goes to the root of it and he says a lot about what we think about because he knows that's the best place to interrupt it. It's in the inside of us. It's when it first starts. And Paul's going to show us a way to flip it. Paul talks a lot about the fact that we can control our minds. And now we are going to see inside his and what controls his. And he says that we could take one thought captive and that one thought could shift all our other thoughts. So let's look at Philippians 1. I thank my God in remembrance of you always in every prayer of mine, for you are making my prayer with joy. Paul's writing later back to the church of Philippi because now he's in another prison, and yet he is loving these people. He is grateful for these people. He has hope. He has joy. And then he's going to talk about this imprisonment, his reality, his circumstance. I want you to know, brothers, that what has happened to me has really served to advance the gospel. Again, he's showing us how he thinks. He wants them all to see how it is he thinks. This is why I have joy. It's so interesting that his aim, he keeps putting it in everywhere. It is the gospel is to be advanced. It is his chief aim. And then he shares, so that it has become known throughout the whole imperial guard, all the rest, that my imprisonment is for Christ. For Christ. He has one aim. And last week we talked about the fact that he could have gone to Asia and been this great missionary, and yet God detoured him, and he would spend many of the rest of his years in different prisons. And this was the story that God had for Paul, and it's one that a lot of us relate to, like our story not going the right way. And when I say that Paul had one chief aim, I mean that he didn't even put the things of God in the place of God. He had one aim. And I think sometimes we can put good things in place of God. I see this happen, and I see it happen in me, where I start to make mission and purpose my God. And it fails us because instead of pleasing Christ no matter what, we start to get picky about our mission and our purpose and what it looks like and how it should play out. And we start to compare. And we start living discontent because we don't feel like we're getting the opportunity to matter, because God can use all of us no matter where we are or what our circumstances are. So if I put my aim in results, even if it's of ministry, I'm going to be miserable. If my value or worth becomes in what I do, even if it's good, it fails. We've got a problem if we love and esteem and run after anything more than God, even if it's something that we stamp God's name on and act like it is for God. We've got to figure out what it is we're chasing. We've got to figure out what it is we worship. If we don't know and we're not honest about it, then we're going to keep being tempted to worship that apart from God. And we want to know what we need to look out for in ourselves. And Paul knows this, and this is why he values discipline and training our minds and training our bodies. It's why he prays all the time without ceasing. Almost every letter, when you read it, he opens it in prayer. He knows that these disciplines, knowing scripture, fixating on the word, being in community, these disciplines align us to God. It helps us see that we are perhaps getting off track or worshiping something besides God. So, how do we take down these fixations? In Philippians 1, he says, and most of the brothers, having become confident in the Lord through my imprisonment, have become much more bold to speak the gospel without fear. Some indeed preach Christ from envy and rivalry, but others from goodwill. The latter do it out of love, knowing that I am put here for the defense of the gospel. The former proclaim Christ out of selfish ambition, not sincerely, but thinking to afflict me in my imprisonment. He's saying, I don't care who preaches it. I don't care if it's with rivalry or jealousy. If they're happy I'm in prison, I don't care. It's horrible and mean, but I don't care, because all I care about, my chief aim, is that the gospel is preached. Actually, go use them more. Make them more successful. Now, only a really secure human who actually has the prize of God in his mind, the prize of the gospel, the prize of heaven, only somebody who thinks that way doesn't care that his enemies thrive, that his people that are happy he's in prison are winning and being successful. Only in every way, whether in pretense or in truth, Christ is proclaimed. And then he says, and I could follow Paul that far, but then he says, and I rejoice in that. I don't know that I can rejoice in that. That is a step beyond where I am currently sanctified. And that's what Paul says, because he literally only has one aim, and it changes everything about our lives, everything about our minds, everything about our attitudes. And if that aim is Jesus Christ, it doesn't matter what the world takes from you. They can't screw your life up because they cannot take your aim away. They cannot take God away from you. But if you build on anything apart from God, apart from heaven, if that aim becomes another thing, then it really doesn't take much to screw up your life. Your life can fall apart pretty easily because anything can go wrong all of a sudden. Anything can send you into a spiral. And having God as your fixation, it changes everything. It kills idols like approval and competition. It kills self-glorification. It kills a love of money. And all of a sudden, it doesn't matter if you have money or you don't, if you're in plenty or you're in need, because all you care about, like Paul, is that the gospel is preached, that the gospel is advanced. Are we looking at our lives this way? Because when we look, we tend to notice everything. We notice what we have and what we don't have. We notice who has influence and who doesn't. We notice how people look and what they're getting that we aren't. We notice things when we fixate on anything other than Christ. But when Christ becomes the aim, we stop comparing and obsessing. We realize all those things that we're jealous of could actually work together to advance the gospel. And instead of competing, we're actually calling each other up and out. And we're saying, let's take the hill together. You have this resource? Great, bring it. Let's dream about how we can use these resources together. That's what I see for us, that we start to see each other as we should, as teammates and not competition. So only in every way, whether it is in pretense, with gossip or slander, I don't care. Christ is proclaimed. And then Paul goes on and he takes it to the absolute extreme. Yes, I will rejoice, for I know that through your prayers, the help of the Spirit of Jesus Christ, this will turn out for my deliverance, whether on earth or in heaven, as it is with my eager expectation and hope, that I would not at all be ashamed. Christ will be honored in my body, whether by life or death. For to me, to live is Christ and to die is gain. And this is where it gets unthinkable. Now, the aim actually becomes something bigger and better than life. Something bigger and better than everything on this earth. He's saying, I believe this book so much. I believe this Jesus so much. I believe in everything he's promised me, that this is worth dying for. In fact, I'd be better to go ahead and die and be with Christ. Now that is craziness. And let me tell you, the people I know who live this way, who believe God like that, they are so dangerous because there's nothing on this earth that can be taken from them. There's a fearless, focused recklessness to their lives that's dangerous to hell. And you've seen it in people. They don't get distracted. They don't spiral out. They don't get jealous because everything they have is focused upward and toward God. Paul talking about life and death here, it reminds us that we don't have long, that it'll be over tomorrow and we'll go to the place we're going to live forever. But somehow thinking about that today, it helps me live differently. And tomorrow, I want you to notice something. When something comes up and you're starting to worry and you're starting to fear, just think, if Jesus comes back today, is this going to matter? And if it doesn't matter, let it go. We retrain our thoughts. We build new grooves, new pathways. This book and science both tell us the same thing because God is the God of science. He built our brain. And this book says we can retrain it. We can focus on new things. We can focus and set a new aim for our life. It's possible. And in doing it, 1,000 problems are solved all at once. So let's come back to this thought, this game-changing thought, that we have a choice. We have a choice what we think about. We have a choice what we serve, what we worship. We have a choice what we fixate on. We have a choice. We were built to fixate and worship things. It's how God made us. It's that he built us to fixate and worship him. And anytime we put something besides him in that place, of course, everything starts to break down. We're not subject to our passions. We're not subject to our emotions. We're not subject to our thoughts. We're not subject to our habits. We're not subject to our genetics. We are not subject to our circumstances. We are not subject to anything. We have a choice. Now, we may not have a choice about our circumstances, But Paul and Jesus say we have a choice about how we think about them. And I love that truth. I love it because so often I sit down with women and I hear their stories and it hits me that it doesn't matter what country or city we are from. We are all the same. We have similar fears, similar fixations, similar hopes. We're not that different. But the people who actually live differently and powerfully, they believe they are not subject to the winds of their day. They're not subject to their own thoughts or their feelings. They have one aim, and every single thing in their power, they are conforming it to that aim. Guys, I know this is hard. I know this is war hard. Like, this isn't a little bit of hard. This is a lot hard. And so, guys, we've got to fight for each other. And we have to fight this and take it seriously. We have to hate the things we love more than God. We have to disassemble them, spot them in ourselves when we're getting off track, when we're being petty, when we're distracted, when we love anything more than God. We've got to call it out, name it, confess it, and run from it. David was good at this. David loved a lot of things in his day. But David knew that every single time he found himself loving something more than God, he turned and ran back to him. And that's what we do again and again and again. We run back to God, and that's how our minds change. That's how the grooves change. That's how we build new patterns. It's by fixing our mind consciously and regularly, fighting the thing that we love more than God by setting it on the thing that is better than any other thing on earth, our God. So we set our minds. We set our minds on the best thing that ever happened to us, the best thing that has ever been, that ever will be. We set our minds on the love of God, the compassion of God, the character of God. We set our minds by studying this book and knowing it inside and out. We set our minds. It's not easy. It's not. But it's possible. And it is the greatest, most fulfilling way to live.